I turned down a promotion in another city just to stay close to her. But she threw away our marriage for a coworker who still lived in his sister's basement. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? My name is Evan Miller, and I am 34 years old. Life with Rachel felt like everything I'd ever dreamed of. We had a small apartment downtown, steady jobs, and a quiet rhythm that felt unbreakable. Mornings started with coffee and laughter. Nights ended with tired smiles and shared plans. I thought we were building something solid, something that could never crumble. She worked in marketing at a big firm, always surrounded by people. Confident, stylish, admired. I never felt threatened. I trusted her completely. My days were spent at the IT office, long hours fixing systems and managing deadlines. She often said she was proud of my dedication. That pride made me work even harder. I thought we were a team. Rachel had this way of lighting up a room. Everyone loved her energy. I loved her stability. When we got married, I told her she was my safe place. And for years, she was. We built our life on loyalty, or at least I believed we did. But looking back, there were moments that hinted at something hidden. Her eyes drifting away when I spoke. Her laughter fading faster, the way her phone seemed glued to her hand. I ignored it. I told myself she was just stressed. Every marriage has seasons, I thought. Every couple hits rough patches. Still, something about her started to feel distant. When I'd ask about her day, her answers grew shorter. When I reached for her hand at night, she'd pull away, saying she was tired. It hurt, but I stayed patient. Love, I believed, was stronger than mood swings or fatigue. One night, she told me her office was planning a huge project launch. "It's all hands on deck," she said. "Late nights, early mornings, it'll be worth it." I nodded, proud of her commitment. She kissed my cheek before leaving that evening, her perfume lingering in the doorway long after she was gone. I didn't know that scent would later become the smell of my destruction. I didn't know those late nights weren't for projects, but for someone else's attention. If I had known then what I know now, I would have watched closer, listened deeper. But love makes you blind in the most beautiful way. It convinces you the person you trust the most could never be the one who hurts you the deepest. That's how it began. Ordinary days, innocent smiles, and the slow death of truth hiding under busy schedules. I was still proud to be her husband, still blind enough to think love meant safety. But safety is an illusion, and mine was about to shatter piece by piece. The first real change came quietly, the way cracks spread before something breaks. Rachel started spending more time at the office. She'd call late, apologizing for missing dinner, saying things like, "The team needs me tonight." I believed her because her voice still sounded soft, still sounded like my wife. But small details began to bother me. Her phone was always face down. Her laughter felt forced, like it belonged to someone else. When I'd ask simple questions, who she was working with, what project was keeping her late, she'd dodge them with charm. "Evan," she'd say, smiling, "you worry too much." That smile used to comfort me. Now it made me uneasy. Weekends changed too. She stopped wanting to go out, saying she was exhausted. When I suggested a short trip to the mountains, she told me she couldn't. Too much work. Yet I'd see her online late at night, texting someone long after she said she was asleep. When I asked, she said it was her manager. I wanted to believe her, so I did. I noticed new perfume on her dresser, a scent she'd never worn before. Expensive. I asked about it once. She said it was a sample from work, a gift from a client. She said it casually, but her eyes never met mine. I remember nodding, forcing a smile, pretending I believed her. I was scared of the answer if I pressed harder. Her wardrobe changed too. New dresses, new heels, new confidence. that didn't seem to come from me anymore. She used to ask for my opinion, but now she'd say, "You wouldn't understand the office vibe." That line stung more than I admitted. I started feeling like a stranger living in my own home. One night, I woke up around midnight and found her on the balcony, whispering into her phone. When she noticed me, she smiled and said, "It's just a work emergency." Her voice trembled slightly. I wanted to ask who it really was, but the fear of knowing stopped me. Sometimes ignorance feels safer than truth. At work, I tried to stay focused, but every thought led back to her. My friends noticed my silence, asked if everything was okay. I said yes, but even I didn't believe it anymore. My gut screamed something was wrong, but love makes you blind and stubborn at the same time. Then came the moment that should have woken me. She came home one evening smelling faintly of cologne, not mine. I stood there, frozen, staring at her. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Traffic was terrible." I didn't reply. I just watched her walk away, pretending not to notice how my world was slowly falling apart. That night, as I lay awake beside her, I realized something had shifted forever. Trust doesn't vanish in an instant. It erodes grain by grain until you can't rebuild it anymore. The first lie came dressed as innocence. Rachel said she was traveling for a short business conference, just a 2-day trip. She packed lightly, kissed me goodbye, and promised to call each night. I helped her load her bags into the car, believing every word that left her mouth. I didn't know that was the moment she started slipping away completely. The first night, she called around 9. Her voice sounded distant, like she was speaking from another world. "I'm just tired, Evan," she said. "The meetings went long." I told her to rest, that I missed her. She paused for a second, then whispered, "I miss you too." The words sounded practiced, too smooth to be real. The next evening, I tried calling again. No answer. I texted her. No reply. Hours passed. My chest felt tight as I stared at her contact photo glowing on the screen. Around midnight, I gave up and went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside felt like proof that something was wrong. The following morning, my phone buzzed with a message. Not from her, but from one of her coworkers, a guy named Ben. He'd worked with her for years and often talked about how professional she was. His text said, "Hey man, is Rachel okay? She didn't show up for work yesterday or today." My blood ran cold. She wasn't at the conference. She never was. My hands trembled as I typed back. She told me she was traveling for a project. His reply came fast. "No project this week, man. We've all been in the office." My heart started pounding. I tried to breathe, but it felt like I was choking on the truth. When she finally came home that night, smiling as if nothing had happened, I could barely speak. "How was the trip?" I asked. She blinked, surprised by how calm I sounded. "Good," she said. "Productive." I watched her place her suitcase by the door. The tag still had the airport sticker. Local, not out of town. I felt a cold, sharp anger building, but I stayed quiet. I wanted to see how far she would go. Later that night, while she showered, I checked her laptop. Her email was still open. One message caught my eye. A string of deleted drafts recovered automatically. My hands shook as I clicked through them. They weren't work emails. They were love notes, sent to someone named Daniel. A name I'd never heard before. My heart dropped with every word. I can't stop thinking about last night. You make me feel alive again. He doesn't understand me the way you do. Each sentence was another knife. I closed the laptop quietly, my reflection trembling in the dark screen. That was the first lie, the one that cracked everything open. I realized she hadn't just betrayed me. She'd erased me. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you like this? Comment below. After reading those emails, I couldn't think straight. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I told myself maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just harmless flirting. But deep down, I already knew. No one writes, "I can still smell you on my skin," to a coworker. The next morning, I waited until Rachel left for work. I sat on the couch, staring at her laptop. My chest felt heavy, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. I opened her inbox again, scrolling deeper. Most messages were gone, wiped clean. But the browser history told a different story. Deleted emails, private folders, encrypted attachments. She wasn't careless. She was clever. She'd been covering her tracks for months. That's when my mind shifted from heartbreak to precision. I was an IT specialist. Tracking digital footprints was my world. And if she thought she could hide her lies behind passwords, she underestimated the wrong man. I downloaded recovery software, the same kind companies use for cyber forensics. Within minutes, her deleted data started coming back. The progress bar moved slowly, but each percent felt like a countdown to truth. When the results appeared, my stomach dropped. Hundreds of messages, dozens of attachments, and his name, Daniel Brooks, everywhere. I clicked one at random. "You make me feel young again," she'd written. Another. "He's too predictable, too quiet. You're different." My heart twisted at every word. Then came the worst one. A hotel confirmation. 2 nights. Same week she told me she had a conference. Everything lined up perfectly, painfully. I opened more messages. There were selfies she'd taken in bathrooms, quick snapshots in her office, all sent to him with captions that made my blood boil. My mind flashed back to those nights she'd come home tired, her eyes glazed with guilt. I thought she was exhausted from work. Now I knew she was exhausted from pretending. I copied every email, every receipt, every image onto a hidden flash drive. I didn't yell. I didn't call her. I just sat there in silence, staring at the screen. The man I used to be, the one who trusted too easily, started fading. What replaced him was colder, sharper, and far more dangerous. That evening, she came home smiling. "Rough day?" she asked, noticing my silence. I looked up at her, forcing a smile. "Just the usual," I said softly. She leaned down and kissed my forehead, completely unaware that I had already seen the truth she buried. I watched her walk away, wondering how someone could lie so beautifully. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Revenge wasn't about rage anymore. It was about timing. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, clutching that flash drive in my hand. It felt like holding her heart, and I was deciding when to break it. The next morning I woke up before Rachel. She looked peaceful, her head resting on the same pillow where she'd whispered lies night after night. For a brief moment I wanted to shake her awake and scream the truth in her face. I wanted to demand why she chose him, why she destroyed everything we built. But I didn't. I swallowed the anger, let it settle deep inside, and smiled instead. At breakfast, she talked about work deadlines, pretending nothing had changed. I watched her closely, the way she stirred her coffee, how her eyes darted away when mine met hers. She had no idea the man sitting across from her wasn't the same one who kissed her goodnight yesterday. Something inside me had shifted forever. I spent that day in silence, playing every possible scenario in my head. Confronting her would only end in tears and manipulation. She'd cry, lie, and twist the truth until I doubted what I saw with my own eyes. No, I thought. She didn't deserve the chance to explain. She deserved to face herself in the mirror of her own shame. So I waited. I acted normal. I smiled when she spoke. I told her I loved her just to watch her fake it back. Every "I love you too," she said, cut like glass. But it also fueled me. Patience became my weapon. My silence became the noose she would one day hang her lies on. At work, I couldn't focus. I kept replaying her emails in my head, hearing her voice echo inside those digital confessions. When my phone buzzed with her name, I almost laughed. The message said, "Miss you today." It wasn't love. It was habit. The same habit she practiced with Daniel, probably in the same tone, maybe even the same words. That night, I told her I'd be working late. She kissed my cheek before I left, unaware that I was heading somewhere else. I drove to the motel listed in the emails. The neon sign flickered like a warning. The clerk recognized her name instantly. "She's been here a few times," he said casually. My stomach clenched. I thanked him, handed him a few bills, and left without a word. Driving home, the city lights blurred through my windshield. My anger didn't roar. It hummed quietly, steady and controlled. By the time I parked outside our apartment, I knew exactly what to do. Confrontation wasn't the answer. Exposure was. When I walked inside, she greeted me with a smile, pretending to be the loving wife she wasn't. I kissed her forehead just to watch her flinch slightly, guilt flickering behind her eyes. I went to bed that night beside the woman who broke me, planning the day I'd break her mask. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's preparation. And my silence had just begun. The company party was supposed to be a celebration. Rachel's firm had landed a massive client, and every employee was invited. She was excited, dressing carefully, choosing a silver dress that shimmered under the light. "You'll come with me, right?" she asked. I nodded, smiling calmly. She didn't know I had something planned. The truth was ready to come alive. When we arrived, the hall was buzzing with laughter and music. Champagne glasses clinked, colleagues congratulated one another, and everyone looked their best. Rachel mingled effortlessly, her charm glowing brighter than ever. She introduced me to a few coworkers, acting like the perfect wife. But when Daniel walked in, her eyes changed. She tried to hide it, but I saw the spark. Quick, nervous, electric. I shook his hand, pretending nothing was wrong. He smiled confidently, the kind of smile that belongs to a man who thinks he's untouchable. "Evan, right?" he said. "Rachel talks about you all the time." My jaw tightened. "I'm sure she does," I replied, holding his gaze until he looked away. The evening carried on, laughter rising, glasses refilling. Rachel was relaxed now, believing she was safe, believing her secret was buried. But the flash drive in my pocket said otherwise. I'd spent the past week preparing everything. The emails, the photos, the receipts. All neatly arranged in one simple presentation file. When the manager called for a short presentation to highlight the year's success, I stepped forward. "Mind if I share something?" I said. The crowd turned. Rachel's smile faded slightly. "Just a small surprise," I added, plugging my USB into the laptop. The screen came alive behind me. The first slide looked ordinary. Rachel's name, her department logo, the company's motto, integrity above all. The room applauded lightly. Then I clicked to the next slide. An email appeared. The subject line read, "Can't wait to see you tonight." Laughter stopped. Another slide followed. Rachel's reply, "He's asleep. I'll sneak out in 20. Gas filled the room. The next slide was a hotel receipt. 2 nights Daniel Brooks and Rachel Miller. Silence hit like thunder. Rachel froze, pale and shaking. Daniel's face turned red. The crowd looked from them to me, eyes wide. Someone dropped a glass. Claire from HR whispered, "Oh my God!" Rachel stammered, "Evan, please." But her voice broke under the weight of her own guilt. I looked at her calmly. I just wanted everyone to see what integrity looks like, I said. Then I unplugged the USB and walked away, leaving her standing in the ruins she created. Behind me, whispers exploded. Daniel tried to speak, and Rachel began to cry. But I didn't turn back. I didn't need to. The truth had already burned brighter than any revenge I could have planned. If you were in my place, would you forgive or walk away? Tell me in comments. The fallout started before I even reached the parking lot. My phone buzzed nonstop. Calls, texts, voicemails, from Rachel, from her coworkers, from mutual friends who'd already heard what happened. I didn't answer any of them. The world could burn behind me for all I cared. I had finally done what she thought I never would, ended her lies with truth. By morning, the entire office knew. Screenshots spread through group chats. Whispers turned into full-blown gossip. Rachel's perfect image collapsed overnight. She didn't show up to work for 2 days. Daniel did, but he kept his head down, humiliated, stripped of his arrogance. The man who once smiled in my face now couldn't look anyone in the eye. Justice, it turned out, didn't always need words. It just needed evidence. Rachel came home that third night, eyes swollen, voice trembling. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her tone halfway between anger and shame. I looked at her calmly. "Why did you do what you did?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Tears streamed down her face, but I didn't move. I wasn't there to comfort her anymore. The woman I loved was gone long before that night. I was just burying what remained. The next morning she packed her things. No shouting, no begging, just silence between us. When she reached the door, she turned and said, "You ruined my life." I almost laughed. "No, Rachel," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." Then I closed the door behind her and locked it, not just to keep her out, but to finally let myself breathe. The days that followed were strange. The apartment felt both empty and alive. For the first time in years, there was no pretending, no waiting for texts that never came, no lying beside a stranger. I started sleeping again, deep, dreamless sleep that felt like healing. I didn't realize how heavy her lies had become until they were gone. People talked, of course. Some said I went too far. Others said she got what she deserved. But I stopped caring what anyone thought. I'd spent too long being quiet for someone else's comfort. Now, silence finally belonged to me. Weeks passed. Rachel moved out of town, probably chasing a fresh start. Daniel requested a transfer to another branch. They faded into background noise, while my life started to rebuild piece by piece. I went back to work, fixed engines, and found peace in the sound of machines that never lied. One evening, I drove past her old office building. Lights flickered inside, laughter echoed faintly. But I didn't feel anger anymore, just calm detachment. I realized then that revenge doesn't always leave destruction behind. Sometimes it clears space for something new, something cleaner. Freedom, I learned, doesn't come from forgiving others. It comes from forgiving yourself for trusting the wrong people. Months passed, and life slowly began to feel different, quieter, steadier, mine again. The mornings no longer carried tension. The air in the apartment was light, untouched by lies. I woke up early, brewed coffee, and looked out at the sunrise without the heavy ache that used to live in my chest. Freedom didn't come all at once. It came softly, in moments of peace I hadn't felt in years. I left my old job soon after. The same office where I'd buried my pain felt too familiar, too heavy with memories. I used my savings to start something new, a small IT repair shop in a quiet part of town. The sign above the door read Miller Tech Solutions. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. Every screw tightened, every wire fixed, every late night spent building that place felt like another piece of me returning home. Customers began to trickle in. Some days were slow, others busy. But every person I helped reminded me that honesty still existed in the world. I found pride in simple work again. My hands stayed busy, my mind stayed clear. And slowly, that constant knot of anger I used to carry began to fade. One afternoon, while fixing a client's laptop, I came across a folder of family photos, smiling faces, kids, playing in the yard. It hit me unexpectedly. I realized I'd spent so long drowning in betrayal that I'd forgotten the beauty in ordinary love, in loyalty that doesn't fade. I didn't want Rachel's betrayal to define me anymore. It was a chapter, not the book. Weeks later, an email arrived. It was from her. The subject line read, "I'm sorry." I opened it, not out of curiosity, but closure. She said she'd lost everything, her job, her reputation, her peace. She said she finally understood what she'd destroyed. I read every word, calm and steady. And when I reached the end, I simply closed it. No reply. Some goodbyes don't need words. That evening, I locked up the shop and went for a drive. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and red. I rolled down the windows, letting the wind rush against my face. For the first time, I didn't feel haunted. The past wasn't chasing me anymore. It was behind me, exactly where it belonged. I didn't win by exposing her. I won by surviving her, by rebuilding from the ashes she left behind and becoming a man who didn't need revenge to stand tall. Sometimes the best closure isn't revenge. It's rebuilding your peace so completely that nothing they did can touch it again. And that's what I found: peace, freedom, and the quiet strength of starting over. This is how my wife betrayed me. Should I forgive or move on? Tell me in comments. If this story meant something to you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories of heartbreak, truth, and healing.